China's embarrassment, sole G7 player in Belt and Road Initiative expected to quit game. China's economic deterioration will drag down global economy, foreign investors are fleeing. U.S. rent-a-room industry thrives due to demand from parents in China. It's all covered in today's China Truths. China's embarrassment, sole G7 player in Belt and Road Initiative expected to quit game. The Chinese Communist regime is losing face as Italy announced its intention to withdraw from the Belt and Road Agreement with China. Italy is the sole member in the G7, a group of 7 advanced economies, to join the Belt and Road Initiative initiated by China. However, in late July, Italian Defense Minister Guido Crosetto said that the country, under the previous administration, had made an atrocious decision when participating in the Belt and Road Initiative, because the 4-year deal did little to boost its exports. In an interview with the Corriere della Sera newspaper published on July 30, Mr. Crosetto said that the decision to join the Belt and Road Initiative was an improvised and atrocious act that multiplied China's exports to Italy, but did not have the same effect on Italian exports to China, and the current administration is considering how to pull out of the agreement. Crosetto said, "The issue today is how to walk back from the deal without damaging relations with China, because it is true that China is a competitor, but it is also a partner." Now, it is reported that Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni will officially announce in September that she will not renew the China-Italy Memorandum of Understanding on the Belt and Road Initiative, and instead, sign a trade agreement with China to seek cooperation in the fields of transportation, energy, agriculture, and science. If it is true, the Chinese regime will be embarrassed because China has attached great importance to Italy's participation in the new Silk Road strategy, but now it cannot keep Italy. The Belt and Road Initiative envisions rebuilding the old Silk Road with massive infrastructure spending, connecting China to Asia, Europe, and elsewhere. It appeared to be an agreement to bring the world together, but in the eyes of some critics, it has been regarded as a tool for China to spread its geopolitical and economic influence. Disappointing data. The European Union has become more and more vigilant about economic and trade relations with China. However, Italy and China still signed a Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, on the Belt and Road Initiative in 2019, becoming the only major Western country to have taken such a step. But the benefits Italy has obtained so far are quite limited. China's investment in Italy did not increase, but decreased. The statistics from Shanghai-based Fanhai International School of Finance, Fudan University, showed that China's investment in Italy related to the Belt and Road Initiative dropped from $2.51 billion in 2019 to $810 million in 2020. According to data from the Rhodium Group, an American think tank, China's foreign direct investment, FDI, in Italy in 2019 was $650 million, but was only $20 million in 2020. Although it slightly increased to $33 million in 2021, it was much lower than China's investment in Germany and France in 2020, which reached $1.9 billion and $1.8 billion, respectively. In trade relations, Italian official data showed that China's exports to Italy have nearly doubled from €31.7 billion to €57.5 billion in the past 4 years. Italy's trade deficit with China reached €41.1 billion in 2022, compared with €18.7 billion in 2019. It means its deficit expanded by 2.1 times. While Italy's trade deficit is rapidly expanding, France and Germany's exports to China increased significantly in 2022, though they are not signatories to the Belt and Road Initiative. Therefore, Italian government officials pointed out that unfair economic relations will be used as the main reason for not renewing the agreement. Philippe Lecour, a French scholar at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, summed up 3 reasons for Italy to consider its withdrawal from the Belt and Road Initiative. First, former Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi adopted a softer policy towards China during his tenure. Second, Italy's negative public opinion on China continues to increase. Third, Italy achieved little success since it signed the Memorandum of Understanding with China. Italy recognizes China as systemic rival with EU. China has made a major breakthrough in its diplomacy after Beijing persuaded Italy to join the Belt and Road Initiative. Now when the European Union regards China as a systemic competitor, Italy echoes the EU's voice. Therefore, Italy may not renew its agreement with China. This will be a major turning point in the relationship between the two countries. In this regard, Chinese authorities have issued a warning to Italy, claiming that if Rome rashly decides to withdraw from the Belt and Road Initiative, it will cause conflicts between the two countries, as well as negative impacts on their cooperation in economy, trade and culture, and it will even affect Italy's own national image and credibility. The Chinese Communist Party's mouthpiece Global Times early in August even published an editorial titled "Don't Let Quitting BRI Become Italy's Regret," in which it claimed that Italy is sacrificing its multilateral cooperation with China to gain some benefits from the US. The Times accused the US of almost labeling Italy as a traitor of the West and therefore exerting strong pressure on Italy. But indeed, the Belt and Road Initiative is reflecting Italy's disappointment with China. For the past year, Italian Prime Minister Meloni has indicated that she intended to correct that big mistake by withdrawing from the initiative. China's economic deterioration will drag down global economy, foreign investors are fleeing. Global smartphone shipment volume may have the worst year in more than a decade, as China's continued economic uncertainty has weakened consumers' willingness to spend. Financial analysts and investment experts believe that China is the world's largest consumer market. The deterioration of its economic situation is bound to drag down the global economy. In addition, foreign investor confidence in China's economy continued to decline, and they are withdrawing investment in China. Global market research and consulting company Counterpoint Research in an August 17 report said, due to China's economic deterioration and deflation and the sluggish demand in the United States, global mobile phone shipments are expected to fall by 6% year-on-year in 2023 to 1.15 billion units, the lowest level in a decade. Counterpoint Research senior analyst Karn Chauhan to the U.S. media CNBC, China's smartphone purchase volume has been reduced from an average annual peak of 450 million to 270 million per year, which is the main reason for the decline in global smartphone sales. A traveling American political analyst who was a senior manager of the marketing department of a Chinese company said in an interview on August 19 that the volume of Chinese mobile phones has fallen sharply, mainly because the market size in China has shrunk sharply. Factors: one is the issue of consumer capacity, and the other is the issue of market capacity. Mr. Liu Yuan said that since the outbreak, China's economy has fallen sharply and contracted. The economic situation of the vast majority of Chinese people has generally deteriorated, and their consumption capacity has declined. Therefore, the market demand for products such as mobile phones has also slipped. When everyone's economic conditions were good, people were often willing to upgrade frequently and pursue new functions and styles of mobile phones, but when economic conditions were not good, people began to treat consumer spending with caution. They will think that the old equipment has not been damaged and can still meet the demand, so they are not urgently purchasing new products. With the weakening of the overall economic situation in China, the downward trend in consumption capacity is becoming more and more obvious, resulting in a further contraction in market size. Mr. Liu Yuan said that on the other hand, it is a population problem. The epidemic caused hundreds of millions of people to die in China, which had a serious impact on the market size. Therefore, driven by two factors, consumer capacity and market capacity, China's mobile phone shipments have fallen sharply. He said that China is the largest in the world in terms of consumer market. The deterioration of the Chinese economy will inevitably have a ripple effect on the world. China's huge market size has a profound impact on the global economy. If this consumer market shrinks, it will inevitably spread to the global scale. Investment experts also believe that the deterioration of the Chinese economy will further drag down the global economy. In an interview on August 18, Mike Sun, a senior Chinese investment strategy expert and private investment consultant, said, China's stock market is not good, and the economic situation is not optimistic. This will inevitably lead to a decline in demand, which includes external demand and internal demand. Mr. Mike Sun said, taking external demand as an example, Europe is China's second largest trading partner. China has been importing European products, including luxury goods, in the past. In previous years, the Chinese traveled to Europe for a lot of money, buying watches, jewelry, clothing, etc. The Chinese have bought a lot in the past decade, and the annual consumption should be tens of billions of dollars. Now that the economy is not good, this demand must be shrinking, and it is shrinking very badly. He said that this is just an example of an industry. From aircraft field to the field of electromechanical products, industries will be affected by the deterioration of the Chinese economy. Mr. Mike Sun said, from this perspective, in the overall global environment, countries are constrained by each other, are related to each other, and have a high degree of association. This is especially true of the capital market. Since China is the second largest economy in the world, the market is huge. If such a large market economy declines and demand weakens, market demand will also decrease. For other countries, it is difficult to find alternative markets in a short period of time, and they will definitely be affected. In another spotlight, global funds fled the Chinese stock market and set a sell-off record. Recently, overseas funds have been withdrawn from the Chinese stock market in successive days, setting a sales record. Bloomberg said on August 17 that overseas investors also sold 1.5 billion renminbi, about $208 million, in shares on the Shanghai Stock Exchange and Deep Stock Exchange on the 9th consecutive day of a net outflow of funds. This is the longest net sell-off since Bloomberg began tracking the data in December 2016. Bloomberg said that in the last 9 trading days, overseas traders sold 46.2 billion yuan, about $6.3 billion, of mainland Chinese stocks, almost erasing their recent buying frenzy. Chinese strategist Lei Meng from UBS Securities told Bloomberg that after the recent data was released, overseas investors are reducing their expectations of economic growth. A report released by the Bank of Goldman Sachs on August 15 showed that increased concerns about the Chinese real estate industry and a series of weak economic data have caused the global hedge fund to actively sell Chinese stocks. Goldman Sachs said that all types of stocks were sold, but shares listed on the Chinese stock market fell, accounting for 60% of the total sell-offs. Hedge funds sold Chinese stocks on 8 of the 10 trading days as of August 2023. This is the largest net sell-off in China's stock market in any 10 days since October 2022, and one of the highest levels in the past 5 years. At the same time, data released recently by the CCP's foreign exchange regulator also showed that in July, bonds held by foreign institutional investors decreased by 37 billion yuan, about $5 billion, to 3.24 trillion yuan, about $440 billion. U.S. rent-a-womb industry thrives due to demand from parents in China. The rent-a-womb industry pipelines children born of surrogates in the United States to parents in China, a researcher said. Babies born this way automatically gain U.S. birthright citizenship. Ms. Emma Waters is a research associate for the Center for Life, Religion, and Family at the Heritage Foundation. She said, Chinese rent-a-womb industry has been burgeoning in the United States for about a decade, particularly in California, where laws regulating commercial surrogacy and in vitro fertilization, IVF, are permissive. Surrogacy, a practice where a woman carries a pregnancy and gives birth to a baby for another person or couple, is completely banned in China. Ms. Waters said in an interview on August 11, Chinese couples use services offered by American fertility clinics that create for them embryos potentially having the biological makeup of the Chinese nationals, and birth the baby in the United States. According to Ms. Waters, with birthright citizenship laws in the United States, that child, who may be 100% Chinese national in their biology and genetic makeup, actually gains and maintains the full rights of U.S. citizenship. She added, when that child turns 21, even the parents can apply for a green card and eventually get citizenship, which is a much faster and cheaper process than if they were to apply for citizenship through some of the traditional methods. Giving foreign nationals full access to American citizenship through the wombs of American women poses a huge national security threat. If a child is born and raised in China, inculcated in their culture, and very loyal to their lands, when they come to the United States, They're not being flagged as a foreign national who's applying for a job or applying to work in a research lab, they are applying as a U.S. citizen. There's not a database that's publicly available or easy to access where these children are being listed. And so should they apply for jobs, employers in the government or private sector have no idea of the background that they're dealing with. Ms. Waters said that the situation was made possible due to the lack of regulation and laws around this. Ms. Waters suggested that the House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party, which has been studying Chinese investment in areas such as entertainment, farmland, and media, needs to spend more time investigating Chinese investment in Americans through Chinese children created in America by in vitro fertilization and commercial surrogacy. So how does the fertility industry work? When Chinese nationals connect with a fertility clinic, particularly in California, they have an option to either create an embryo using their own sperm and egg or they can purchase a sperm or egg. In many cases, they travel to the United States, but with the current technology, they are technically not required to leave China in order to create an embryo, she continued. A Chinese couple or individual can simply work with a US-based agency to send their reproductive material, sperm, egg, or embryo, to an IVF lab and implant it in a hired surrogate, in the United States, to produce a viable pregnancy. Ms. Waters reviewed recently about 450 fertility clinics, particularly in California, but there are many more outside of that. She said, many of these fertility clinics actually have a direct or indirect connection to China. As a common practice, those clinics offer Chinese language options, according to their websites, and a lot of them have doctors or administrators who once lived in China and moved to the United States to either work for or open a fertility clinic. Ms. Waters said that some fertility clinics interviewed by mainstream media stated that up to 50% of their clients in a given year were from China alone. Some media published sound bites from a Chinese national who said that in the next 2 decades, either China or the United States will come out on top, so it makes good sense for them to have a kid with dual US and Chinese citizenship to choose in which country they will live in the future. According to Business Wire, the U.S. market for fertility clinic services was estimated at nearly $8 billion in 2022 and is predicted to more than double by the end of 2028. The way people in the United States view childbearing started changing in 1973 after the Supreme Court's decision in Roe v. Wade case, setting a precedent that overrode the state abortion laws and legalized the procedure nationwide. All of a sudden, children were no longer a natural part of marriage or a natural outcome of sexual intercourse, but instead, children became an option that parents could choose to opt into or opt out of. Ms. Waters said, the baby-making industry functions along the same lines. It was made possible for the first time through technology like in vitro fertilization and commercial surrogacy to create a child according to parents' desires or to opt out of. About 75% of in vitro fertilization clinics in the United States offer genetic testing of the embryos they create to assess if the child has a propensity for Down syndrome or another untreatable illness, as well as the sex of the child, their hair color, eye color, and skin color. Since in vitro fertility services are expensive, example, the cost of a single round of embryo creation ranges from $15,000 to $30,000, it is common practice for a fertility clinic to create multiple embryos at a given time. When legal, medical, and surrogate fees are added, the costs can reach up to $225,000 to have a child using this process. Through genetic testing, parents can select the ideal embryo that they want. If there's other embryos they might want in the future, they can freeze those. She added, there are currently over 1 million embryos frozen in the United States. But if the embryos, for whatever reason, don't meet the parents' specifications, they're the wrong sex, they could have Down syndrome, those embryos are destroyed. Ms. Waters pointed out, for people who believe that life begins at conception, destroying embryos during this process is the outright murder of these unborn children. According to Ms. Waters, the growth of the fertility industry raises massive human rights concerns. The way the industry is structured, it's meant to separate the process of conception, pregnancy, and childbirth between as many people as possible. The surrogate is told not to have an emotional connection with a child that she is carrying and birthing. This sends a message that the fertility clinics can put together the ideal child that the parents want, which tells parents whether intentionally or not that children are a product that can be designed to be the perfect accessory to their life. Ms. Waters wrote for the Heritage Foundation. California's legislature proposed a bill that requires most health insurance plans to cover in vitro fertility services for a single person or same-sex couple. Once a man purchases the egg, the womb, and the necessary paperwork, the line between a legitimate fertility service and outright baby selling dissolves. What is only insurance coverage for IVF today becomes the human trafficking market of tomorrow. Don't forget to leave a comment in the section below to share your opinions on today's topic with us. Make sure to like and subscribe to see more interesting topics from China Truths.